It is the latest comic pack featuring Emirate Xaaron and Autobot Flame, two characters that were really more featured in the UK comic, but very cool. Emirate being a resistance leader, Autobot Flame being his old buddy who is a little sketch. But it's a very cool box. Again, these comic boxes, they're making me run out of room, but it shows a cover from Meltdown Part 1, and it's actually Transformers and Action Force. So Action Force is America's elite special forces that deal with Cobra. Yeah, it's basically G.I. Joe. They didn't have G.I. Joe in the UK. They had Action Force. Same type of thing, just different name. G.I. Joe being very American and Action Force being a little more generic. But it shows them in their different alt modes on the back. Yes, these are retool repaints, but still very cool figures, and I'm going to go through them bit by bit. I'm Captain Kyle. If you're new to the channel, welcome aboard. If you've been watching for a while, thanks so much for coming back. And let's get into these two comic icons. Be right back. So again, Hasbro has decided to basically take some figures that we never got back in the 80s and make them into figures today. Now you could be like, yeah, they're just trying to make more money. Well, who can blame them? Who doesn't want to make money? But also, it's very cool that they're going back and providing us those characters that we never got way back in the day. Now it is showing on the cover here, Emirate's there. His head was kind of Megatron-ish in the beginning. Broadside, Springer, and Ultra Magnus. So I do recommend going back and checking out the comics while I break these out. No, not while I break these out, but while I break these out, just to explain a little bit, they were working on something called Operation Volcano. So Operation Volcano involved the Wreckers, and Ultra Magnus was joining them to provide necessary power in order to take out a bunch of the elite Decepticons, like the Insecticons and Ramjet, and it was a very bold plan to basically assassinate a bunch of Decepticons, which doesn't seem like a good guy thing to do, but at the same time, it is war, and sometimes in war you have to do stuff that you might not normally be inclined to do. So there is Flame. Let me fix his feet, and he is a remold retool of Gamer Edition Megatron. So they're bringing the Studio Series into this thing, whereas the much smaller Emirate Xaaron, they're thinking it's probably a title, and Xaaron is his name, and Xaaron is his name, O-X-A-A-R-O-N, and I'm not gonna try singing that. But yeah, so these figures only shown in the comic books. I'm very glad to have them, and I'm going to be transforming Xaaron very carefully because in the comics he had not transformed in so long he was worried it might kill him to transform after all this time. Ooh, look! Shitty piece of paper. Let's get rid of that. So the accessories are a little bit different than the ones that come with, say, Reflector, and Megatron. He's got this big cannon for Flame, so I'm going to just put that on his arm. And let's see what the instructions say. But yeah, at one point, and I believe I sold them off, I had like I had a huge stack of the magazine size UK comics, including a lot of the ones that featured these guys. All right, let's see how this is supposed to go with putting treads on his legs, a shield type thing on his arm, and a gun / turret. So there they are, fully outfitted. It has been a while since I have actually read this comic, but I do know that Ultra Magnus had decided that he needed to go to Earth instead and track down Decepticons and find out what was happening with Optimus and all this stuff. I don't want to spoil things. So the Wreckers got a visit from 3 triple changers who basically put up a heck of a fight and then revealed themselves to not be Decepticons as their symbols were, but were actually Springer, Broadside, and Sandstorm, who were going to fill in for Ultra Magnus. So they had this great plan, and the plan would have succeeded, quite possibly, if it wasn't for Megatron saying, "I need more troops on Earth now! Send me the Insecticons and pretty much everyone who was going to die in Operation Volcano." Obviously, the Decepticons had no clue what was coming, but because of Megatron's orders, Operation Volcano became a bust. But it did feature these very cool Transformers, so let me start with the Emirate. We'll get to you, don't worry. So you can kind of tell it's not super easy to tell because they've made some mold changes and retooled him. And the addition of these treads definitely makes it look a bit different, but he is a retool of Reflector. So I bought Sky on the table and she knocked off my microphone, so you couldn't hear me tell you why she's wearing that harness. Long story short, we have a new kitty named Honor, who Sky doesn't get along with. I really hope that changes, but this harness calms her down, so there's less fighting. If you think you know where my new kitty's name Honor comes from, leave a comment. I'll let you know if you're right or wrong. Now, back to the review. All right, so he's got some nice ankle swivels, just like regular Refraktor, and those treads can come off, so be careful of those. Full Jean-Claude Van Damme, though the protrusions on the treads that you add to his legs kind of lift him up a little bit. Kick forward, kick back, kick to the side, or really high to the side. Bends at the knee, 90 degrees, and twists around. Twists at the waist all the way around. Arms can go all the way around and out to the side. Bends at the elbow, does a nice swivel like so. The fists themselves do not twist. I think that's part of the transformation. The head itself, though, turns all the way around. So a very cool figure. If you're in the know and you look at this, you're like, oh yeah, I can see where it was based on Reflector. I should just call him Reflector. You can definitely see that he looks quite a bit different. Now, I'm looking all over him because he is an Autobot, but disappointingly, I'm checking his head too because I got a little fooled with Straxus. No, I am not seeing an Autobot symbol anywhere on him. If I spot one at some point, I will let you know, but no Autobot symbol. That's a shame. But all right, let's transform him carefully so he doesn't die. I have to say, these can come off pretty easily, so just be a little careful of that. Well, let's get him into his tank mode. So there he is in his battle tank mode, and while there is some resemblance to the Refraktor spacecraft, I know I was going to say Reflector, but it still looks different enough that you can't necessarily just tell at a glance that it's based on Refraktor. Now, one thing I've noticed is this cool piece right here, which is like where the pilots go inside, is supposed to snap right into this platform here, but it doesn't seem to like to stay. I'm curious if you have this figure, if you've noticed that yourself, or when you get it, if you also notice that it doesn't like to stay in there. I mean, I can get it to go in there for a second, but it's almost like sticking these pieces together, which are originally his legs, and then attaching these kind of puts them out of whack. But even without that snapped into place, it still looks very cool. Now, there's no wheels. We can do a slide test. He slides. But a very cool figure in his vehicle mode. He's about 5.5 inches if you count these little nubs on the back. And I can definitely see where some of the retooling came into play, because I don't think that Reflector had that little flip out canopy style thing. When he's in robot mode, he is just a hair shy of 5 inches tall. So there he is, Emirate Xaaron. Now, one thing I just found out, which is kind of, I think it helps the aesthetic. If you decide you don't want to put the shield on his arm, you can attach it to his back. And I think it actually adds to him as a figure. So there you go. He also slightly reminds me of, just a tad bit, mainly in the legs, of G2 Hero Megatron, but obviously in yellow. Well, now let's get to Flame, who is Hot Rod's long-lost cousin, apparently. I mean, this Flame motif is basically very Hot Rod-like. He's got the Hot Rod chest emblem and the Autobot symbol, so this guy, there's no problem seeing that he's an Autobot. He's a cool figure. You can put the gun on his arm. I think this guy's like, put your hand down. You can put it in his hand, and if you prefer, when he needs both hands, he can have it on his back like so. The face is kind of reminiscent of like a samurai warrior, but he's a scientist, a rogue scientist, kind of bad things. But let's check him out in posability. I'm gonna take this off for now. So his feet, right, I know, there's really not much in the way of ankle swivels inwards, more outwards, which doesn't really help that much. But full toes up Jean-Claude Van Damme, not a problem. Yay! He can kick forward, very high. He can kick back, also very high. Side kick, very high. Knee bend. Now, just like the Studio Series Gamer Megatron, not a ton of a knee bend. Though there are some thoughts that you could potentially, move that out a little bit so he has more of a knee bend, or if you trim these down, but I don't like to make too many physical modifications to my Transformers. I like to keep them as is. So, bends at the knee, swivels also at the knee. So when she's in this harness, she tends to get dramatic and act like she can't do stuff, like I can't jump up. And then she jumps up when she really wants to jump up. So do you want me to take it off? I can take it off, but don't go chasing Honor or Newt for that matter. If I have to put it back on, she's like, yay. This is called compassion. Don't make me regret it. All right, so twisting at the waist all the way around, just like Studio Series Megatron. Arm all the way around on both sides. And bend at the elbow really nicely. He's got a swivel. The fists do not twist, I don't think. Let me double check. Nope, fists don't twist. Head will go all the way around. So yeah, some good dynamic posing. And yeah, he does look like Hot Rod's uncle, but he doesn't change into a Hot Rod. So a very cool figure. One more spin on the turntable of doom. Again, I don't think Megatron's weapon is exactly the same as this. I think this is a similar but different piece, though I haven't looked at my Studio Series Gamer Edition Megatron for a while. Bring it on. All right, let's get him into vehicular mode. So there is Flame in his hover tank mode. To be honest, I don't remember if in the comic they ever showed him in his alt mode, but he looks Cybertronian to me. Again, similarities to Studio Series Megatron. Probably a couple things. Push that in, push that in. But he's pretty sturdy. No wheels, can't roll him, but he can hover and tank. This turret does not traverse, it does not change its attitude, it does not move, it's just forward. So there does appear to be like a 5mm port up here. You could put something up there if you want, you know? Maybe a little flag from Cosmos so he can be racing. But a very cool and very Cybertronian version of this character. From tip to his back tips, he's about 7 3/4 inches long. And I am glad to finally have Flame, who, you know, I always kind of thought when I saw him he was somehow related to Hot Rod. Now in robot mode, he is about 6.5 inches. And I do want to point out that he also has the detachable arm that Megatron has as a gamer edition, so he could potentially plug in other stuff there. But his design, looking so much like Hot Rod, and the design of Straxus, who changes into a laser cannon that looks a lot like Galvatron, makes you wonder, were these inspired by the movie? Except Straxus came out about the same time as the movie, and movies take a while. So unless Bob saw something early, it's unlikely that he got a sneak peek of the movie. Not impossible. And did Simon Furman get a peek at the movie? Decide, hey, I kind of like that Hot Rod guy. Or was there some kind of weird coincidence? I don't know. I don't know the exact timing on the storyline that introduced Flame, but he looks an awful lot like Hot Rod. So cross-pollination, or it just had to happen at some point. But there they are, the Autobot Flame and Emirate Xaaron. Two figures I've been wanting for quite some time, and I'm glad that Hasbro again is doing all these comic editions. It's very cool. And these are fun figures, and I hope you're having fun watching these videos as much fun as I have making them. And if you're enjoying this content, by all means, feel free to subscribe. And while you are mulling over these guys, which I'll put a link in the description to get them, you can check out this video over here, which is the comic edition of Straxus, who I just talked about. Another comic character that we finally have a definitive version of, though we had other Straxuses in the past. Anyways, we will see you next time. As always, have fun and good hunting.